There are some circuits that are inexorably linked to Formula One. Monza, Silverstone, Monaco. I think it's safe to say you can toss Spa-Francorchamps onto that list. This long, winding bit of tarmac in the misty Ardennes forest has been a driver and fan favorite for decades, and has somehow retained that love throughout its various forms. But one driver will probably wind up loving it a bit more than the others today once they stand on the top step of the podium. We'll find out who that will be as we get ready to watch round 2 of the iRacing Grand Prix Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sam, why is it that drivers and fans alike keep heaping praise on this track year after year?
Honestly, Joe, especially when it comes to Formula One, I think the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps is what every racetrack wishes it could be. It has famous, exciting turns, it has high speeds, with many overtaking opportunities at the end of these long straights. Virtually every single turn on this circuit can be an overtaking opportunity. But at the end of the day, also, of course, it is one of the safest tracks in the world. It's had a bit of a Not the most pleasant of histories back in the day, but nowadays it is definitely top quality circuit, and you'll see some top quality racing here for 44 laps today. 19 turns on the circuit. We're racing for 44 laps, 4.3 mile circuit, 7 kilometers around. But let's give you a better idea of what it's like with our GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Martin Kroenke and the Virtual Racing School MP4-30 in our GSRC lap guide around Spa. Down into La Source is going to be a very popular place to pass, but if you send it in deep, watch out for the over-under. Not spinning the wheels off this slope hairpin is going to be very important, because when the car is light, you won't be lifting all the way until Lacombe. Even still, the car can get a little iffy through Eau Rouge, so don't think that the downforce is going to save you every time through here. The critical thing is keeping up your momentum to help build speed down the Kimmel Straight. The vast majority of overtakes will be taking place here, not just because of the long stretch, but also due to the DRS. Even with the cars hitting over 200 miles per hour, you're braking astonishingly late into the chicane. So when you go for a pass, you've got to be committed. Nobody needs a little lift, and then comes the ever-frustrating rivage. Downhill braking into an off-camber long hairpin makes for a combination bound to annoy even the best out there. But quickly, you've got to swap sides to set up for no-name. Just a little dab of the brakes will do, but be careful of losing grip on the AstroTurf. We continue to drop down into Puhan, where this double apexer is going to reward a very stable car. Planting your foot early to the power out of the second half can garner you lots of time. Finally, we hit the bottom of the hill, and sometimes sneak attacks can be made into Fagnes, but this is a pretty swift right-left, where you won't be slipping under 100 miles per hour if you hit it right. Then it's a quick trip into Stavelo, which is definitely among the more critical corners of the track. The first apex is much slower, but the second one is just marginally too sharp to be flat out. The drivers who carry the momentum better will be at an advantage along this incredibly fast Blast de Blanchiment. But if you find yourself side by side into this notorious left-hander, it's going to be one big game of chicken. You can hold it to the floor through here, but not with another car next to you. At the end of the lap, the final good place to overtake is the bus stop. Just try not to clatter over those tall sausage curbs. But hopefully, you've kept it all together and have now finished a lap around Spa. This guide was brought to you by Virtual Racing School, a comprehensive online learning platform specifically built for sim racers. It offers data packs, software tools, and access to some of the world's best sim racers. For more information, visit virtualracingschool.com. A big thank you to the folks at VRS for loaning us that lap for that guide. Now, we're waiting for the first of the lap times to come in around this relatively long track, so while we wait for drivers to notch one up, let's take a look at the points having one round already completed. Kazuki Umeshima currently leads the way, but not by much, with it only being one round in. Josh Rogers, only 13 points behind. We're familiar with him here on the Global SimRacing channels. Michael Partington, of course, 25 behind down there in third, and then you get a very close fight for fourth between Manu Domingo and Harrison Finch. Of course, we also might have fans who've never watched the iRacing Grand Prix Series, Sam. So for those people, why don't you give us a little bit of info of what they're in store for today in this race?
Well, this is an official iRacing Series race, Joe, so not every driver may even know they're currently being broadcast right now. With our first time doing this, these drivers might just be racing for official series points. What that means is it's week 2 of the 12-race long season. We're racing the McLaren MP4-30, a very recent rendition of a McLaren Formula 1 racing car, though it's a little bit more reliable with that Honda power plant on iRacing. Open setups, and you definitely want to experiment with your setups around here at Spa. Get the most speed that you can around this track. We'll be racing for 44 laps here today. This being the A-Class series that it is on iRacing, there aren't going to be any driver aids with regards to fast repairs. If you bin the car, you're done. Formula 1 cars don't normally like to take any damage. So keep it on the track, point in the right direction for 44 laps. Of course, it's going to be difficult to do that at the start of a run because there's no refueling in this day and era of F1 racing. So everyone's going to start the race with a heavy fuel load. and then burn it off as the race goes on, and we'll wait and see how the tyre strategy pans out, because 44 laps is asking a lot for these tyres around here.
And much like in the real world, we're seeing drivers only do one hot lap, not trying to go for two in a row around here just because of the amount of fuel you need on board, and then they are done. They do get 2 laps if they want, but I'm guessing everybody has that fuel level all the way down as far as it will go. Right now, Mano Domingo sits at the top of the timing sheets with a 1:46.2. So we watch Jan Brezina work his way around yet to get a time in.
Yeah, Domingo was one of those drivers we just saw sitting at the top of the point standings entering this race. That's pretty significant considering the fact this is top of 2 splits, so a lot of points on the line for these guys in this race. But our top 3 drivers that you saw there on the championship standings a moment ago, Umeshima, Rogers and Partingen, are not in this Grand Prix.
Harrison Finch working his way around, as well as Emile Stanciu. Now, Emile, I believe, does have a time in, so yes, he does. Currently sitting 9th. He is going to go for a second run. So not everybody keeping the fuel down low for that one single hot lap. It doesn't surprise me too much here, Sam. The 1Xs are so easy to pick up. I guess some drivers wanted to play it safe just in case.
Yeah, and I mean, let's not forget, talking about the fuel load here during the race, it's going to be tricky considering the fact you're going to have a lot of fuel on board because of the, for 2 reasons. One, the high speeds at this circuit mean that you burn a lot of fuel during the course of a lap. And secondly, this is a full-length Formula 1 race. This is 44 laps. That's how much the guys race what we call in the real world. And that's not the case for every race this season. Most of the races, I think with the exception of this race, Montreal and Monza, are 2/3 of the length of an official Formula 1 race. Spa is an exception, so you will be running with a bit of extra weight today.
Now, our second place driver is just coming around to complete his second qualifying lap. That's Peo Pive. Let's see if he can manage to get himself on the pole before he can try. He gets slotted down into 3rd, and it does not improve on his second lap, so he will do no better than the second row. Matteo Calistani comes across with a 1:46.291, just 3/100ths of a second off the pole.
Yeah, now viewers can see for themselves the top 3 currently at the top of the screen there. Now, Pejo Stoyanov-Pive in the number 10 machine there, currently qualified in 3rd place. There have been official series races going on throughout the week, and he won one of them yesterday, I believe. So with a 1:48 as his fastest time during the race. So he definitely knows how to get around this joint.
Jan Brezina comes across for a timed lap, unfortunately only able to get it 15th on the grid. The field might look a little small, but there is actually a lot of cars participating. This is top split today, as the strength of field race has had enough cars to separate them. So this is the best of the best running out there. Only driver not able to get a timed lap in is Harrison Finch. But let's go through our starting order. Mano Domingo is going to be on the pole with Matteo Calistani on the outside of that front row. Peo Stoyanov-Pive will start in 3rd. Then the outside of row 2 will be Nicholas Rasmussen. He'll be followed in 5th by Carl Germaton. Ronaldo Augusto will start in 6th with Stefan Schmidt in 7th. Ivan Lathuras in 8th. Kevin Fortman in 9th, and Emile Stanciu starts in the top 10 today. Sam?
Yeah, then rounding out the rest of our field in 11th place, we have Bruno Canavaz ahead of Luca Furlick, Matt Fretwell, and Djalmas Giroux. Jean Brezina starts on row 8 alongside Ollie Quoker. Pablo Suarez starting towards the back, as is Harrison Finch. Now, it sounded like Finch did try and set a qualifying time. Unfortunately, something happened as he was coming towards the line. I don't know if he ran out of time, but that's why he's going to be starting at the back. It's going to be interesting watching that number 4 car try and work his way up through the field.
As we wait for the rest of the cars to grid, drivers not wanting to idle too long, waiting for the lights to come up. These cars are heat sensitive.
Teammates starting on the front row there, Joe. See how much room they give each other in turn 1.
As La Source, notorious for incidents at the starts of races here, particularly in Formula One. There have been a number of big accidents and major players who have been taken out in the very first corner of the very first lap. So, as we watch and wait for the lights to come up, only one car left to grid, and now he has slotted in. So, as the lights come on, the engines start to rev. Green flag is out here in round 2 of the iRacing Grand Prix Series. A great start for our pole sitter, but someone farther back dropping down the order immediately.
That was Rasmussen. He spun his wheels offline, got around, a couple other cars clipped him, and drivers running wide on the exit of La Source. We'll have to see if anyone else had any damage from that. But a great start by Peyo Pietro. He started 3rd, he's already up into 2nd. And I'll tell you, Giroux must have got damage from that contact because he has taken a tow to the pits.
Jan Brzezina also had a little bit of contact coming through La Source, but as they hit Lecombe for the first time, your leader is Domingo, followed by Pieve still in 2nd, and then a much closer battle here for 3rd, as Germaton is doing all he can to try and take that away from Calistini.
And Pieve already putting the pressure on Domingo in the opening stages. He wants to be the one to control this race. And I think the drivers starting towards the wall side that didn't have to worry about the spinning car of Rasmussen at the start were able to gain some extra positions. And that's why we see Evan Lathores, who started in 8th place, already running up there in P5.
Great advantageous situation for Lathores as now they come through Fagnes and into Stavolo for the first time. Now, they're coming up to one of the fastest corners in Formula One racing here at Blanchemont. Is it tough to follow behind the car up at this left-hander, Sam?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of aero wake in these top speeds, 190 miles an hour, but it just means these drivers know what they're doing. It just means they sometimes might have to crack a throttle a little bit, turn in a little bit earlier than normal, and they can make a turn. There's something Kyle Germantown's not doing. He's gone off, and that's a shame because he had had a pretty solid opening lap. He rejoins without any damage.
We're going to look at the replay here. Now, I know that there are a few drivers complaining about the braking being difficult on these cars, but did he have help here? Ooh, he might have had a little netcode contact. Evan Lathores behind him. Let's look at the replay of the start and see the wheel spin of Rasmussen. Certainly caught a number of people by surprise. Did anybody actually make contact with him? Because I didn't get to catch it when it was live.
Yeah, I believe they did, Joe. The pink car of Giroux is the one who had to take the tow to the pits. So let's see what kind... Oh, man, he got rear-ended by someone else there.
Almost scooped him up. Gets it back going once again. The interesting thing is it wasn't on the initial start. It was as he was coming up through the gears that he started to spin. Do they have that much power when they get off the line, Sam?
Oh, yeah, it's not easy to start one of these things. That was Reynaldo Augusto that got underneath Rasmussen there that turned him around. Augusto is still out there with a bit of front wing damage. He got away surprisingly well. He's running in 13th right now after starting 6th place, but as we mentioned, a little bit of damage to that machine.
Let's take a glance back up at the front once again, because Domingo has only been able to get about 3/10 ahead of Pieve. Not dropping him by any stretch of the imagination as he holds on for now. Now, I believe the DRS should be available this lap.
Well, if it is, Peeve is definitely within striking range here. This is the first of 2 DRS owns. It's not activated here. Don't see the rear wing flap opening, but I wouldn't be surprised if, as they come out of the source here, if we see some moves going on down into late comms. Keep your eye on the battle for fourth as well. Emil Stanciu right behind even Lothoris.
Drivers now hit the DRS zone as we watch. There's Peeve getting the DRS and closing in, but not close enough this time. Try and make an attack, but boy, does he gain ground on our leader. Puts him within striking range, at least as the DRS is meant to do. For our viewers, I'm sure our longtime race fans are tired of hearing it, but DRS stands for Drag Reduction System. If they get within 1 second of the car ahead, just like in real Formula One, they are allowed to use that button that opens up the flap, reduces the drag on the car, and they can get a lot faster in a straight line.
Stanciu in the wall out of no name. He's made a mistake and he's damaged the car. He hasn't taken a tow to the pits yet, but that number 17 machine definitely made contact with the wall.
It was a hard hit. We're going to watch here. Yeah, that AstroTurf on the outside catches out a lot of drivers, and it looks like maybe that's what happened there. The watch on board. Stanciu coming through Ravage, trailing the car ahead very closely. Gets on the power. Ooh, yeah, as soon as he touches that green, Sam, the car just, it's almost like he had no time to react.
But as we go back to live action here, let's get our eyes on this battle for 6th place, where Stephen Schmidt is trying to hold off Stefan Schmidt is trying to hold off. Well, that's not going to help him because he's going to have to take a slowdown penalty. So that's Bruno Canovas is behind him and Kevin Fortman. Well, he takes a slowdown. He might go away with this. Or maybe not. No, he's still trying to give up time.
He's serving it as he comes around the corner. So Bruno Canovas gets himself into 6th just by keeping it on the track. These cars looking a little hairy in places so far. Now, oh, and we've got a pass for the lead. Peeve gets it away. This time the DRS helps him over Domingo. Let's take a look at it coming out of Eau Rouge. Up and over top Radillon. And we didn't see it on this replay, but Domingo looked solid up and over the top of Radillon, so I don't think that was a mistake on his part. It was just good, solid racing by Peeve.
Yeah, Peeve has already done a couple of races here this week, so he's had some time to practice. All of his drivers, of course, would have been practicing all week long, if not for a couple of weeks in advance now for this race, knowing how many points are on the line when you come to such a popular track as the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. It's paying off for the driver of this number 10 machine, with him leading the field and already opening up a gap over Domingo.
This does put Domingo back into the clutches of his teammate, Calistani.
And let's give a shout out to another member of that team, Joe, and that's Harrison Finch. We talked about how he wasn't able to turn the lap during qualifying. He is now all the way up into 5th place.
Good to see him performing well in another open wheel car. We're used to watching Finch in the Apex Online Racing Series, but this is a huge jump up from the Formula Renault 2.0. Much more complex car, Sam.
Yeah, he certainly knows what he's doing with it. Meanwhile, Jean Bazina is currently coming into the pits. He's got also part of his team. He's got substantial front wing damage there, so I have a feeling he wants to get that repaired before he tries to turn more laps. Now, the nice thing, of course, is with even the iRacing Formula One simulator pit crews, you should be able to get quite a substantial amount of damage repaired in not too long of a time.
On screen, we just saw another tumble in position for Domingo as Calistani now takes it away, demoting Domingo down to 3rd, this time once again with that DRS down into Lecumbe.
Yeah, of course, with these two being teammates, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a bit of radio chatter going on there saying, all right, Calistani, let's see what you have got in your number 1 car. He has the highest rating of anyone in this race.
Now, the good news for those two is the bleeding looks to stop about there because Evan Lothoris in 4th. is not close enough to try and get that DRS on Domingo, and actually looks to be dropping back a little bit. He might have to worry about what's behind, because Harrison Finch, who you just mentioned, has now closed it up to within 4/10, and they are coming up to Blanchimont.
Yeah, we could have a positive team sport running in positions 2, 3, and 4 momentarily here, because Finch has just been carving his way up through the field in its opening stages. It's only lap 5 of 44. He's already passed 3/4 of the drivers out here.
Closes in down into the bus stop. Now up to La Source. What can he do out of here? Not the greatest of accelerations out of that slow chicane. That's not going to give him a chance into the hairpin. Oh, and they're going to have lap traffic here.
Yeah, and one of this is their teammate of Jan Brazino, who just came in to get that front wing fixed. Well, he's about to come out in front of Lathoris. Now, of course, he'll be getting the blue flags for Lathoris and Finch. I wonder which one he's more willing to yield to.
Doesn't quite work like the real world Formula One, where you are obligated to move over within 3 corners. On iRacing, you just have to be respectful of the driver behind and not impede them too hard. And he pulls over immediately, actually.
Yeah, I think it's my... Oh, no, he's taking the toe to the pits. So I was almost wondering...
I think that's the end of the day for him, I'm guessing. We've got 2 DNFs, if that's the case. Brzezina and Emil Stanciu are out, which leaves us with 16 cars on track. Dialmas Girote is the last of the cars running right now in 16th. So we watch this battle for 8th with Stefan Schmidt. Almost more battle for 7th. 3 cars involved in this. The car ahead of Stefan is Kevin Fortman.
So currently VRT eRacing leads the race. Behind them in 2nd position, we have the Positive Team Sport machines, but as we mentioned, it could be a Positive Team Sport running in 2, 3, and 4 momentarily. And then we get back here to this action between 2 more teammates here, between Schmidt and Germanton. Remember, Germanton had that incident on the opening lap, so he's trying to recover from that.
Doing a nice job so far, trailing his teammate Stefan Schmidt. And Germanton deserves a shout out because it is a big European contingent in this race. Germanton is the lone American out there racing right now.
Yeah, for those of you curious as to the pink, white, and black machines there, what team they're racing for, that is Affinity Racing.
Ooh, he's going to be very
battle
close.
For 4th, a nice run by Harrison Finch. And normally, when you see a fast driver start at the back of a field, you expect them to gain like 4 or 5 spots easily in the opening stages, and then he's blinking a little bit. It looks like, yeah. And then when they get up halfway through the field, Joe, or towards front end, those passes become less and less often and harder to do. That doesn't seem to be the case for Finch here.
He is certainly on a charge, not letting anything stop him. I'm guessing that he simply just had a bad qualifying, and his pace merits much better from what we've seen in the race here. Now, we also need to give credit, even though Lathoris lost that 4th position and is down to 5th. Remember, he started in 8th. You would expect him to maybe drop down the order bit by bit, but that's the first time we've seen him lose a spot today. Despite lucking into this a little bit with the chaos at the start. So big credit to Evan for having a fantastic performance here. Although early days, only lap 7 of 44 out there.
Yeah, he's doing a nice job racing in his Gap SRT machine. That's a well-established team over here in the Formula One leagues. Keeping an eye on the interval up front between your 2 leaders, Peeve and Kalastani. Kalastani actually took a couple attempts out of Peeve at lap around. It's 1.3 seconds. And a significant number there, of course, is if it does get back underneath 1 second, DRS could become a fact up front again.
Now, we've mentioned the PRT team up at the top, and of course, we've also got the Affinity team behind them close together. Well, we've got another one. Luca Furlick and Ali Kwaka battling for 10th next to one another. Is this mostly down to teammates sharing setup, Sam? Is it a little bit like oval racing where they share it, and they'll be close to one another. And look at this. Here comes Furlick with a huge run, but he lifts before they hit Lecombe.
Yeah, it's also a little bit of that, Joe. When you get to your teammate on course, sometimes you're kind of just content to follow them and play on the same strategy. You know, don't do anything too risky, especially this early in the race. It's still the 8th lap of this 44-lap event. But yeah, there is a lot you can do with setups on these cars, and one team might know something that the other team does not.
Very secretive at this level of racing, especially with how difficult it is to set up these cars. You want to hold on to every advantage you can get as we continue to watch this battle for 10th. Furlick holding station down through the twisty bits as they plunge to the bottom of the hill here to Stavelo. And then these cars are going to unwind as they get up to 200 miles an hour here, heading towards Blanchimont and the bus stop.
And running not too far behind these drivers is Rasmussen, who triggered that incident towards the start. He's running in the number 3 car in 13th place right now. About the same lap times as the drivers ahead of him in the 1:51s. Will be interesting to see what he can do and if he opts to get some front wing damage repaired when he comes in. Meanwhile, Finch continues his march through the field. Here's rundown teammate Domingo for 3rd.
Boy, as great of a qualifying as Domingo had, his race pace just does not seem to be there. All right, might get another DRS pass with Finch closing quickly. Continues to blink a little bit, and Domingo lets him by with ease.
Yeah, of course, blinking is when the iRacing, your personal computer's connection to iRacing isn't at par. Now, of course, when it's just minor blinking like that, it's tolerable. It's when it becomes excessive that it begins to cause issues. Meanwhile, I was talking about Rasmussen. He did just serve a pit stop and got his front wing repaired, so it'll be interesting to see what the pace of Rasmussen will be as we enter the, well, not even the second half of the race yet, just the mid-portion of the race.
He has been in and out. We understand about a 27 to 29 second bogey time for these drivers to be in the pits as we watch this battle between Rasmussen and Garot. But Garot has not gotten his pit stop yet, so he is not on fresh tires, whereas Rasmussen is. Meanwhile, up in 6th position, Canavas doing all he can to hold off Fortman. Portman hailing from the DH Club, while Canavas racing from Brazil. And you mentioned as well, Sam, as with the puff of smoke ahead of them, that was Evan Lathoris. Oh, big mistake coming out of the bus stop has cost him time. A lot of wheel spin. He kept the car moving forward, but you can see how much this has put him into the clutches of Canavas.
Yeah, and this is not a good place to have a driver right behind you, of course, as they run through Eau Rouge out of Redillion and on down towards a long run to Les Combes. But actually, Canavas does have to worry about Fortman behind him, although they're distant apart enough now where they don't have to worry about a move being made this lap. Meanwhile, Matt Fretwell is also into the pits for an early stop. I don't know if a 2 or 3 stop strategy is really the ideal strategy around here, Joe. I have a feeling the reason we're seeing some cars pit around lap 10 is they sustain damage early on that's causing their tyres to suffer a little bit, and so they're kind of being forced onto a 2 stop strategy.
I understand too, as the cars get lighter, you can run longer stints on these tires with the car being a little bit less heavy, so maybe they can split it up into that 2-stop stint instead of 3, with just the fact that you can take it a little bit longer. Meanwhile, we've jumped up to the battle for the lead because, well, Calistani is now within a second. That is DRS range. He was down to 6/10 at the end of Lecombe, and that has dropped as the wake has kind of forced him backwards to 9/10 now as they come up to the bus stop. But he's going to get another bite at the apple here, Sam.
Absolutely, he will. Now, every now and then you see drivers putting a couple of wheels off as they come towards the bus stop. That does count against you. iRacing will give you an incident point for doing that if you go too far over the line. And there is an incident point cap limit for this official iRacing series, and that is 17. So you can afford to do that about once every 3 laps. If you're doing it a bit more than that, you may disappear from the screen, and that's not a technical glitch. That's iRacing saying, hey, we warned you 16 times, we're not going to tell you 17 times.
Now, Peeve is starting to look like a very savvy driver. He just eked that gap over 1 second before they hit the timing line, before Eau Rouge. So I think Calistani did not get the DRS that time by, and the gap between them has maintained at about 1.1.
Of course, the other thing is if Calistani doesn't think Peeve has anything for him now, he might even just be content to ride out here, because if he did get closer to Peeve but was unable to make a move on him, he'd just be burning off his front tires.
Boy, Lathoris is going to be getting in trouble here soon, because Canovas and Fortman are continuing to close that gap, although Fortman getting much closer to Canovas in this.
Yeah, they took half a second out of Lathoris last time around. But let's borrow a quote from a good friend, as we see Fortman run a bit wide there. Let's borrow a quote from our good friend Bill Zahn and say, what is it about a rooster and a milk throw?
Passing a driver is like milking a rooster. The easy part is catching them.
Okay.
Or the hard part starts once you catch them.
I do not. My brain wave levels do not operate on the same level as Bill's.
Very few people have brains that work like Bill's on, Sam. Meanwhile, as we ride on board with Kevin Fortman doing all he can to try and get by Canovas, he's going to get the DRS once they get to the top of the hill here. But Canovas is going to get it as well on Lathoris. In fact, he is incredibly close if he can withstand the buffeting up and over Radillion. He does. Look at this. This is going to be his best opportunity. Lathoris going way to the inside, trying to fend off that P5, but it's just not enough, and Canovas has to wait for another lap.
I absolutely understand why Lathoris was taking a defensive line down the Kemmel Straight there, but he was also trying to take a defensive line into Eau Rouge. I can't really imagine that's the place where you want to come in at an acute angle.
Certainly not. Well, and as these cars start out pretty heavy, and we're still very early in the race, I have to suspect Eau Rouge isn't quite flat out when you begin, is it, Sam?
Not entirely. It depends, of course. If there's a car in front of you, of course, I don't think it is, and also depends on how good a job you do at hitting your apexes. Oh, wow, Finch running in 3rd place. He just got sideways through Blanchimont. He might just be running there. He has a second between the car in front of him and the car behind him, both of which are teammates, but that tells you these guys are on the limit, because he definitely got sideways on entry there.
That was through Stavolo, actually, that he had that incident. We're going to ride on board, watch him catch this one. Woo! Wow! Full lock all the way to the left. Not something you often do at a high speed in a Formula One car. Oh, and Lathoris comes in for his stop. Now,
probably a smart idea, Joe. It's very early to make a stop, so I'm not sure what he'll do strategy-wise, but this way he doesn't have to worry about the pressure from the drivers behind.
I was just about to ask that, if this was a good idea or not, especially if they are at a slightly faster pace than him. But this will give him fresh tires, which will pick up his speed. So as he heads out on those new Pirellis, he will cycle out into 11th position. This means that Canovas, as well as Fortman and Germanton, might not want to battle too much here and really put the hammer down. Boy, those three still very much in a row. Canovas, Fortman, and Germanton, all within about half a second of one another.
Yeah, we've gave credit to Harrison Finch on how he's been able to tranche his way up through the field from 18th to 3rd. Let's also give similar credit to Bruno Canavas, who started in 11th. And now, granted, it's after we just saw Lathoris make his stop, but he started 11th and now he's up to 5th.
We're used to seeing some older paint schemes in the retro series, but a Zach Speed out there in a modern Formula One car. Love to see the sorts of things that these drivers come up with. Canavas, of course, running that as he continues to be the engine and the train of these three, working their way to complete yet another lap.
All our leaders coming in. Peeve coming in, and behind him is Calistani. So Finch and Domingo stay out.
That means Finch is going to lead this lap. Doesn't really count for anything other than a bit of pride, but it does also give him fresh air, as he's not going to have anything from cars ahead dirtying up the wake. Now as we watch Peeve come in for his stop, hits his marks perfectly. In and out.
Pit road very busy. Fortman also in, as well as Schmidt, Furlick, Germanton. These drivers know their pit stop delta and that they have large teams. So I have a feeling there'll be some help for the top runners, letting them know that the track would be clear when they exited the pits. Sure enough, it doesn't look like any major traffic back there.
Now, you mentioned the teams having strategy. What's interesting is Finch and Domingo on the same team as Calistani, but they've split strategy here.
Yeah, they could just be running a lap longer. Maybe they said, hey, my tire's actually holding up quite well right now. I'm going to go an extra lap. Although, I don't know how well Domingo's tires or setup is handling, considering how far we saw him drop back at the start. Unless this has been his strategy the whole time. Maybe he thought, hey, if I play it a bit more conservative, take it easy on my tires at the start, maybe if he can just get another 7 laps around it, granted that's a lot of miles and kilometers to put on your car, but if he can do another 6 or 7 laps, he could be running a one-stop strategy.
Interesting. So, as we watch to see what our two leaders now do they come in this lap? Finch taking it very deep down into the bus stop, and actually I think that was a bad corner for him as he loses a bit of time to Domingo, but they stay out for one more. You might be onto something here, Sam. Whoa! And oh, with these old tires, Finch is struggling now. He took the good out of them in that first stint trying to climb up the order. Another mistake through La Source.
Canavas, meanwhile, who had moved up to 3rd with the drivers in front of him pitting, he's now in. Now, of course, he was one of the drivers making a charge through the pit, so it'll be interesting seeing where he comes up with relation to Lathoris. Quick stop.
Pablo Suarez comes in as well. Where does that bring him out?
Oh, Lathoris has already gone by, so yeah, these old tires, I guess, must have a bit Canavas. He lost quite a bit of time there. The undercut, definitely strong today.
So we watch this battle for 4th, because Fortman did pit at the same time as Lathoris, and he is closing quickly. Look at the rate, the closing rate. Goes around the outside. He doesn't have it quite done. He's going to get the apex of the next corner, but he's got to carry the speed. They're still side by side through Malmedy. Fortman is not going to give up on this. What about through Rivage? That's going to be a much harder ask. He is late on the brakes. Still Lathoris trying to fend him off. Switches back, left-hander through No Name. Lathoris with a robust defense carries the speed. Wow.
Well, they tell you that Australians are tough, and granted he might actually be a New Zealand driver, but he's from that area. Lathoris proven to be very tough to pass right now.
Well, Fortman is still close behind. He could get another bite of things if he could stay with him through Stavolo. And these two battling has meant that Canavas, despite losing time in the pit stops, has already regained that ground as we look back from Lathoris. No DRS through here, but a heavy braking zone down into the bus stop. Fortman is close. I don't think he's quite close enough. Oh, look at him get up there. Oh, he locks him up, trying to stay out of the back of Lathoris. And that mistake means that Fortman is now going to look in his mirrors, because here comes Canavas. Doesn't try it into La Source, maybe setting himself to use the DRS up to Lacombe. Through the terrifying Eau Rouge. Drops back a little bit. Oh, and that car squirming, trying to keep the power down through Radillion. And I don't think he's going to be close enough to get this done, Sam.
Yeah, meanwhile, our viewers may have noticed Matteo Calistani is no longer up here. He actually came down pit road. He's going to try and find out what happened there, if he had to serve a penalty.
Oh, interesting stuff. We'll have to look into that. Did have confirmation that Lathoris is Australian. Thanks to Flourish Bashar for the information.
I think Calistani may have actually had to come back down the pit straight from crossing the pit exit line. I just went back and looked at his first stop as he was rolling out on pit road. He did have his tyres on the white line there. I'm guessing iRacing maybe didn't like that, but whatever the reason, Calistani has got to work his way back up through the field now.
This goes to show all the little details count at this level of racing. You can't make any mistakes or it will be costly. Even inches over that line can send you many, many positions down the order as we continue to watch this battle between Fortman and Lathoris. One of our closest fights on screen, and this is for 4th place.
I'll keep you updated on what's going on up front. We talk about the 2 leaders being on old tyres, trying to make it one stop, I believe. They just ran 1 minute 52s. Peeve, who was our race leader, is now running 3rd after his pit stop. He just turned a 1 minute 49 on those new tyres. So that tells you there's definitely some games being played there.
Do you think this is a case of they saw they didn't have the pace to catch him on track and just taking a roll of the dice to try something different out there? Meanwhile, that battle for 4th heating up, sorry, Sam, because Lathoris this time is definitely going to lose out because Fortman is well passed by the braking for Lacombe.
Yeah, and like you say, they both lost a bit of time to Canavas there back in 6th. Rounding out the top 8 is Stephen Schmidt and Kyle Dremonton.
Yes, as we watch this, back to the question that I had earlier, Sam, do you think this is a case of they probably had a similar plan at the start and maybe had to change on the fly when they saw that it wasn't going to get them the win?
Yeah, perhaps, but I mean, Domingo, once he lost the race lead, he made that call very early on, whereas, I mean, these drivers, Finch and Domingo, they have gotten to the front through very different strategies. I mean, they started last and first, respectively, Finch and Domingo. So there must have been some improvisation there at some stage, because I don't think they would have started the race thinking, okay, we're starting first and last. We're copying each other's strategy.
Exactly. 2 different teams, so not communicating there. Meanwhile, as we come back to Lathoris once again, certainly been getting his fair share of screen time. I mentioned early about the impressive job he was doing. Well, now it's starting to slip away from him as he's been demoted to 5th recently by Fortman and is under threat from Canavas.
Yes. The good news is he's dropping far back enough from Fortman here. The aero wake won't be affecting him too badly, so if he can just, you know, run some solid lap times here, he might be able to keep Canavas behind him for now. And
Canavas was too far back for the DRS as well.
And
just behind them, yeah.
Switch for 7th, Stephen Schmidt, let his teammate Kyle Dremonton get back around.
What if those two have been actually swapping back and forth? Because I could have sworn before that they were in this position not too long ago. Might be just using that DRS to almost pull a bit of maybe what we see in the Skip Barber cars, using that slingshot to try and get faster and try and catch the cars ahead.
Yeah, leapfrogging strategy. I'm not sure that's really effective here, Joe. I mean, I understand it will work on the straights, but you're losing time, I'm sure, trying to follow your teammate around to the twisty bits.
Fans of Nicholas Rasmussen, well, he's got himself up into 11th, which is still a net loss, unfortunately, for him, having started in 4th. I think he's going to be practicing those race starts after this one.
Yeah, but let's not forget that for the first quarter of a race, he had the damaged front wing. He's only been running out there about 8 or 9 laps with a pristine-looking car again. So it will be interesting to see, with 2 cars just sitting about 5 seconds ahead of him, how far back up the order he can climb.
He comes across to tick off another lap. We are on lap 19 out of 44 in this full Grand Prix distance here at Spa-Francorchamps. You're watching round 2 of the iRacing Grand Prix Series. And there you see our current leader, Harrison Finch, who has yet to take his first stop. We believe at this point, pretty much confirmed that these guys going for a one-stop strategy. Wide variety in strategies out there. 1 stops, 2 stops, and 3 stops showing, although we believe the 3-stopper is more forced into that by damage early in the race. Oh, and Lathoris had a bit of a connection problem, but he's lost positions.
That'll happen sometimes. If you're a driver, when we see a driver having a connection issue, they'll disappear a bit and then they come back. Well, when a driver has a connection issue, they'll see everyone disappear and then they'll come back. I wonder if Lathoris, whose connection was so bad just there, he saw everyone else disappear and he kind of got a little concerned maybe that he was racing around other cars, so backed off a little bit to get out of the pack, and unfortunately that dropped him 3 spots.
Yeah, that's going to promote Stefan Schmidt and Kyle Germanton, who have separated. Disappointment for Lathoris, who has certainly lost out on what was a great opportunity. He was flying high momentarily, but is now back to where he began this race.
Tell you what, positive team sport is very well represented in this race, because right behind the Lathoris now is Ronaldo Augusto in another one of those black and green liveried cars. They're everywhere.
Certainly seem to have filled up the field today. This is not like real-world Formula One. If you're just watching this for the first time here on iRacing, anybody can organize into a team if they please, and they can have as many members as they want. Ooh, meanwhile, Lathoris trying to fight back on Germantown. And he gets him into Lathoris. Oh, excuse me, that's Schmidt that he overtakes.
There's only 2 cars from that team, Joe. This one shouldn't be too hard.
They look like each other, so I can't see their helmets very well from where I'm sitting. Oh, a little bit farther down, and 12th, Calistani. Now, how did he slip this far down?
He had that penalty.
Oh, that's correct, yes.
Yeah, he just got 12th back from Pablo Suarez here. Unfortunately, the real bad news for Calistani, another 10 seconds up the road as the next car, and that's Rasmussen. And with Rasmussen having fixed that damage from early, he's not going to be too easy to catch.
Suarez, of course, we've watched in an older Formula One car, running the Lotus 79. Now, I was about to comment that he needs to get himself a sponsor and a paint scheme, but he does actually have a paint scheme on that car. It's just very subtle. Beautiful.
All right, and Domingo into the pits, and this confirms that this is a one-stop strategy because it is lap number 21 right now, whereas his teammate Finch must be trying to split it exactly 50-50 at the end of lap 22. So Domingo momentarily stops. Let's wait and see what kind of traffic he'll come out in. I got bad news for him.
Oh, yeah, he's right behind the battle of Schmidt and Lathoris. Now, this is going to give him the DRS, so if he can dispose of one of them quickly, that'll help immensely as we ride on board up and over Radillion, down the Kemmel Straight.
Problem is, Schmidt has it too.
Oh, but he's closing fast. Down into the braking zone, he sticks his nose in, he's barely in there. He's given room at the apex, powers around the outside of the second one. beautiful stuff, decisive stuff from Mano Domingo to get himself into 7th. Now he's got to work on Lathoris.
So the gap that Finch and Domingo had over Peeve before their stop was about 6 seconds. Now, the way in which Peeve hopes to catch up that 6 seconds is that he hopes when he pits in the closing stages of the race, those newer tyres for that final stint will allow him to hot lap this circuit and easily dispose of his other two that he's been racing for the win all race long. And Finch is in, and Finch, of course, as we just saw from Domingo, is going to come right out hot and heavy in this traffic.
A little bit farther behind as well, actually, since he was a second or two back from the leader before the pit stop. Interesting thing in this is it's going to promote Kevin Fortman up into 2nd. He started in 9th on the grid. So if he can retain this is a nice performance from the DH driver. All right, Finch is cycling out.
And he's going to be ahead of his teammate Domingo here.
Interesting stuff. Did not expect that. Finch is going to be able to spread his wings in 6th. Much better than his teammate.
Well, that must be time. Domingo lost battling Schmidt, and already Finch is going to put Lathoris between him. Oh, no, maybe not. Yes, and actually he makes room for his teammate. Domingo now able to get alongside, crosses underneath, looking down the inside of Rivage, who can do this. But Lathoris, he could have shut the door on him there, but chose not to. Domingo on the outside for the off-camber, no-name turn. What about Pujon?
Oh, with wheel spin, trying to get the power down out of that corner. He's got his nose in on Pujon, too wide through here. So hard to do, and he backs out of it. He's not brave enough. What could have been an important moment for Domingo, already losing touch to his teammate. Wow. You talked about that Aussie grit from Evan Lathoris. Shows up once again. This is a driver that is not going to let you take anything with ease.
He's doing a great job of it. I mean, he's been leaving everyone room.
Yeah, that's what impresses me is somehow he's figured out how to drive offline and carry the speed of the car. Now, I don't think the marbles are too bad at this point in the race, so he can get away with that now. But Sam, do you know if the buildup will be bad once they get to lap 40 or so?
I do not.
All right, well, we'll have to wait and see. So we ride on board with Stefan Schmidt, trailing behind the two cars of Domingo and Lathoris. This is for 6th place between these three. The interesting thing about Finch and Peeve being on these different strategies is that Peeve has to pit quite a bit later to get much fresher tires. If he pits too soon, then he's only going to have a few laps fresher, which won't be as much as a pace advantage.
Yeah, I was just sort of taking a look at our track conditions today, Joe, to see what I can make out of a tyre where the track temperature for the start of this race was only 89 degrees Fahrenheit, which is fairly cool. So, Schmidt has hit trouble. I'm not sure if he got in the wall, but going out of Rivage and down to No Name, think he might have lit the tyres up and grazed the wall. We'll try and get a replay of it. His car's still going, so if he did make contact with it, hopefully it wasn't too significant.
Oof. And unfortunately, these Affinity cars are not going to be too fond of damage if he got any. Very sensitive to anything that you do to them. Already in the clutches of Luca Furlick back in 9th. Just past halfway on this race now. So we watch this battle. We'll see if this plays out, but if nothing happens soon, we'll try and run down the order here. Give you an update on where everybody sits. Furlick takes a peek to the inside, but I didn't think he was ever going to be close enough to make that one happen into the bus stop. Gets the DRS this time down into La Source, and then it'll get one more time on to run to Lecum if he can stay within a second.
But before they get there, Lathoris and Domingo are going to get there. Lathoris already being defensive as they went down on the run-toe route, but Domingo's close enough. He's going to get the DRS anyway. He's going to have a nice run by the time they get to Lake Combs. Lathoris taking the defensive line, saying Domingo going to have to go to the high side. Looking on the outside of Lake Combs. This time he's going to pull it off.
Took him a couple tries, but he finally gets through. You can see the damage done, though. 3.5 seconds between himself and his teammate Finch. Meanwhile, Furlick was not able to overtake Stefan Schmidt. Stayed ahead of him. So why don't we run down our order as it stands now. Now, there's different pit strategies happening out here, so this is going to be a little bit shuffled. Peeve, currently your leader with a fantastic start, going from 3rd to 1st. There in the early part of the race. Kevin Fortman, using the 2-stop strategy, of course, has got himself into 2nd. We think that could possibly change depending on where the 1-stoppers wind up. Rounding out the podium, Bruno Canavas, another driver with a great race, starting in 11th, getting himself into the top 3 here, running that 2-stop strategy. Same thing with Kyle Germantown, of course, going from 5th to 4th, not as high of a climb for him. Now, how about Harrison Finch? He had a horrible qualifying, and he started in 18th. Well, he's got himself into the top 5, however, is on a unique strategy, trying to go for a 1-stop out there today. Manu Domingo as well, doing the same as his teammate. We saw the battle that he just had, has finally disposed of Lathoris to get himself into 6th, but it cost him a lot of time. Lathoris behind them, sitting in 7th. He's been a bit of a yo-yo today, going up and down the order. Well, even though he started in 8th, he is in 7th, so it is a net gain for him at this point. Stefan Schmidt, one of the Affinity teammates, sits in the 8th position. He's gone down 1 since the start of the grid. He's been trying to hold off Luca Furlick, who sits in 9th. He started in 12th. It's been a pretty good day for him. Is this going to become 8th? Nope, not today, as they break down into Lecum. And then rounding out the top 10, Sam, it's going to be Ronaldo Augusto going from 6th to 10th.
Yeah, and there's been a switch for 4th place. Harrison Finch just got by Kyle Germantown. Nothing spectacular. He just got the DRS run on him down the Kemmel Straight and made the move sticking to Lake Combs. So now we're currently seeing the drivers on no tyres pass these drivers who have been running around 6th, 7th place all race long by currently up in the podium positions. By which I mean Finch is about to pass Canavas and Fortman in the next couple of laps with not too much difficulty, hopefully, for Finch, because he's been running them down at about 1 to 2 seconds lap.
Oof, which is quite a bit of time each lap.
Yeah. Well, he has had a more impressive race, but the big question, of course, Joe, is, as you mentioned, all these drivers, Fortman, Canavas, and Germantown, are all going to have to pit again anyway. So in the grand scheme of things, they're not going to be racing Finch at the end of things. However, the driver that will be is Peeve. He is only 16 seconds up the road off this battle, only 16 seconds ahead of Finch. So, and that gap is closing because of Finch's pace. As you mentioned, when Peeve pits, he will have about a 10-second deficit behind Finch. Will his tyres at the end of a race be enough to run him down as Finch makes the move for 3rd here?
Well, it's enough to run down the car of Canavas. He gets 1 with the DRS, but not 2. Next in line for him is going to be Fortman. And yeah, Finch has turned up the wick on those fresh tires. Our eagle-eyed viewers may have spotted that purple icon up in the upper left. He set the fastest lap of the race last time by with a 1:48.8. Way off the apex there for Fortman. A big mistake is going to hand second on a silver platter to Harrison Finch. Clear road ahead of him now. 16 seconds between himself and Peeve. This is where he's really got to put his right foot to the floor.
Lap 26, 18 laps to go at the end of this one. I think it's too early for Peeve to make a stop. The other thing Peeve will really want to keep his eye on is his intervals. He'll have access to them in his car on iRacing. It'll tell him how far behind each driver is. And as we mentioned, the number is 27 and 29. The problem is Peeve is not running very impressive lap times right now as the fuel burns off in the race. He's run in 1 minute 50s. Well, that would have been impressive in the first half of the race when everyone had a lot of fuel. It's kind of on the slow side now because his tires are a bit worn. But so he's got to be careful because a lot of drivers in midfield are going to be keeping that time with him. He's just going to want to make sure that when he gets out, he has a clear racetrack so that he can, every single lap at the end of a race, he's going to want to be running down Finch.
Meanwhile, battle for third heating up a little bit because Canavas is going to get the DRS on Fortman, but he's a little bit too far back as they break for Lacombe. Unfortunately, he's going to have to stay outside of the podium for now. Sam, put yourself on the pit box for Harrison Finch and for Peeve. If you're Peeve's pit strategist, do you believe this is going to work? Do you think he's going to be able to climb back through and retake the lead?
If I'm Peeve's pit strategist, I'm really waiting for the end of this lap because we're about to find out what pace Finch has. The last few laps, he hasn't really been able to show all of his cards because he's been held up by traffic. And if I'm Peeve's pit strategist, I'm a little peeved that Finch was able to make quick work of all of that traffic so quickly.
It's not a GSRC broadcast unless we make our director groan. So as we watch on board, Peeve, Peeve makes a mistake!
If I'm Peeve's pit strategist, I'm really not happy right now.
Time being gobbled up. He's not going to pit this lap, though. He stays out. Let's watch the replay from above. Under braking. Now, is this what some of the drivers were talking about in the forums with the new build? And that looks very much like the case of the regen on the car just being incredibly finicky. And as he lifted off the brakes, the rear came around.
That cost him 7 seconds.
And gives the advantage to Harrison Finch. What a race is this going to be if Finch can go from dead last to the win today?
I think it's going to happen.
It's looking very likely at this point, but as we've seen, you just cannot tell until the checkered flag flies. Finch as well could have his own problems.
Meanwhile, Germanton did just pit, as did a couple other drivers.
Ooh. On screen.
Wow, side by side.
Yeah, Calistani is going to have a big cut course penalty there, as he did not expect to be door to door coming through Eau Rouge. Let's watch on board here.
Which part is the door, Trey?
You know, the doors on F1 cars. Oh, yeah, he tried to be brave there, tried to pull a Fernando Alonso, but it did not pay off for Calistini. The Italian, unfortunately, lost gobs of time having to lift over the hill.
Ollie Croker just pulled a 360 through Raidalong.
Wow, suddenly, Eau Rouge is Calamity Corner. Let's watch the Gap SRT car come over the top of the hill. We wondered if it was flat out. Whoa! Beautiful job getting that thing back around. Now, thankfully for him, I think he's probably glad that there's no flat spot model on these tires yet.
All right, Peeve is into the pit. Still going to be interesting seeing where he comes out, even though things aren't looking as good for him for the victory anymore.
All right, let's see. Lathoris is coming in. Schmidt is coming in. So I think he actually is going to cycle out with not too many cars ahead of him. Just 3 cars, Domingo, Fortman, and Finch. Yeah. Wow, he lucked out there. Clear track now ahead of the Central Eastern European driver. But boy, does he have a steep hill to climb. That spin through the bus stop, as you said, costed him about 7 seconds on track. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do this.
If he hadn't had that spin, he would be 2 seconds behind Domingo right now and able to run him down within a lap or two. And he wouldn't have to worry about Fortman, because I'm pretty sure Fortman's going to have to stop still before the end of this race. Can't make it to the end, running the torrid pace in second place on those older tires.
Yeah, I believe, if I'm seeing right, we'll get an update when he crosses the line. 18 seconds between himself and Finch. This has been a fascinating round 2 of the iRacing Grand Prix Series. Thank you for joining us here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. This makes me even more excited to get to cover this season, as these McLaren MP4-30s have really put on a stunner for us so far. We look back at Germanton sitting in that 5th spot. His pit stops are done. From here on out, it's going to be what he can do on the track.
Sure enough, Fortman into the pits. He'll be coming out in that battle with Canavas and Lathoris and Schmidt, Germanton. All those drivers have had a few extra laps on their newer tyres. So let's see if anyone's able to pull the undercut on the number 13 machine. That's always a great feeling, isn't it, Joe, when you jump into an iRacing official session and it says, you're the 13th driver here today. We're going to give you the 13th best driver here today. We're going to give you a number 13.
Well, I don't think the unluckiness hits as hard here as it does in real Formula One as we watch this battle here with Fortman. That is Canavas directly behind him as they come up over Radillion. He wouldn't even need the DRS here as he was right within the slipstream. Down into Lacombe. Tries to go the long way around to the first apex, but it gives him the second one. Wow, big bobble there from Fortman, not brave enough to steer into him. So move Canavas now up to 5th.
Yeah, move Germanton up into 4th after this round of stops. Not too surprising considering the fact he was the first driver to make his second stop there, so he really was able to pull off the undercut quite well. But still definitely worth applauding considering he's been in the mix for those drivers all day long and looks like he's going to come out of this with a top 5 finish.
Well, we were wondering about the gap for Peeve and Finch. 17 seconds I'm seeing between them. Now, we're not going to get a good idea of where his lap times are, as that was an out lap for him, so that was a 2:07. But Finch last time, a 1:49.1. I understand that Germanton set the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, 1:48.865. That's a very solid lap time.
Oh, and now we got a lap time for Peeve, a 1:48.9. So about, that's only 0.2 faster than Finch. Am I seeing correctly? Yeah. That's not going to be enough.
Oh, no, I mean, his chances of running Finch down, I think, were thrown out of the door with that spin. Right now, the best he can hope for is to try and get second from Domingo. And honestly, that's going to be a tough ask because these fresher tyres, yeah, having 5-lap or 10-lap fresher tyres and the guy in front of you throughout the whole run is going to help you every single lap. But the biggest help, I believe, is at the start of a run. And eventually, Peeve is going to be, 3-4 laps into this run, and the chunks of time he's going to be taken out of Domingo's gap to second place are going to get a little bit less each lap, I would think. So we should have a good battle for second shaping up at the end here.
Is one hope, and Sam, I don't know if you've done a long enough run to find this out. In the real world, they have to worry about what they call the cliff with these tires. Do they drop off suddenly late on in a run, or do they stay pretty even as they lose time?
I'm sure there is a cliff. I mean, I think, honestly, I'm not fast enough to find that cliff if it did exist. But I don't know.
That's his only hope right now, I would think. So we watch Canavas still in this battle. Sorry, go ahead.
We did see these drivers squirming around on 20-lap old tyres early on, now you mention it. However, Finch has such an easier race ahead of him than what he's already been through. I mean, he does not need to abuse these tyres for these final 12 laps.
Well, he's got an 11-second gap over Domingo right now. He really does not need to push. He can nurse those things to the end. And with only about 12 laps to go, 13 laps to go, not much more left of this thing. Canavis needing to look in his mirrors now because Fortman's going to get DRS up and over Dillon. That flap opens up, and wow, he gets a burst of speed. Makes it look easy down into Lacombe, so move Fortman into 5th.
Yeah, at the top of show, Joe, Finch posted a message in the iRacing chat saying, I thought I was going to run a 1:45 in qualifying, and I was looking at the pole time of a 1:46.2, and I'm like, yeah, okay, he's just trying to get in everyone's heads. I believe him now.
Boy, Harrison Finch pulling off a coup here today. In fact, I don't think he got a lap time in, did he? No, he did not. No. So he just probably had an error in his qualifying that cost him.
But oh, there you say. First bubble we've seen out of him in these closing stages.
Are those tires starting to get old? Has the shine gone off of them, as they say? He comes down, plunging down into Eau Rouge. He's been on these tires for 11 laps at this point. So not a horribly long time, but we're starting to see them give up the ghost a little bit. This is a long lap around Spa-Francorchamps. And Kevin Fortman with the fastest lap now on 3-lap-old tires, as the weights on these cars, no fuel in these pit stops, just like real Formula One. No refueling. You have to put in what you need for the entire race.
Yeah, so confirmation on our YouTube chat here, there definitely is a cliff, and the fear that we all have of Finch's tyres really being bold at the end of this race is definitely a reality. But as you mentioned, Joe, it's not even that he has a 12-second lead on Domingo and 15 seconds on Peeve. He's pulling away from Domingo, and Peeve's not catching him down a whole lot. He can afford to back off a little bit, I think, if he did want to conserve his tyres a little bit.
And that would certainly be my call. And Domingo's on the same strategy. He's got 12-lap-old tires, so if anything, slightly older. So he probably will not be under attack from his teammate. Peeve is the main one he needs to fear. Now, I want to check in on a driver who was a little bit higher up at the start, started on the front row, Matteo Calistani. Remember, he had that penalty, we believe, for potentially unsafe pit exit going over the exit line. Well, he's climbed his way back to 7th, so not too bad of a job here for the #1 car.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's going to be on defensive mode. It looks like the cars racing around him are those drivers who pitted late. So Lathoris running about 3-4 seconds behind him, running him down about a second a lap. Calistani might have to keep an eye on these mirrors in the closing stages.
Well, and actually, I'm looking, he's on a 19-lap stint right now, so he's actually got older tires than our one-stoppers. So he has another stop to make, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. He's on a 2-stop strategy here. He's just
very long.
He's either on a 1-stop strategy or pitting on lap 15 or so, which I don't think will work in a million years, or he's in a 2-stop strategy, hoping that pitting for tires towards the very end of this Grand Prix will allow him to put on some hot laps at the end and maybe leapfrog these positions back.
Yeah, and he's struggling right now going through Lacombe and then down into Ravage. So if he's trying to make it to the end and this cliff is real, then you can call him Wile E. Coyote, because I don't think this is going to work.
If you're sitting, over on the Camel Straight, I would get ready, get your photos and cameras ready, stand up, get ready to cheer, because I think we're about to have a battle for second on, as these two drivers running in second place, Domingo and Peeve. Less than a second between them now as they approach the line. Peeve might even get a little bit of DRS on the front straight here, but that doesn't help you a heck of a whole lot. It's going to be what happens down the Camel Straight and into Lake Holmes. I'm about to find out in about 20 seconds from now.
Well, with the DRS and fresh tires, I'm not sure that I would classify this one as a battle so much as a walkover. Peeve has gunned down Domingo after multiple seconds back. They work their way up through Eau Rouge. This is going to be the DRS here. And as that car reels him in, Domingo does not even go defensive. He knows this is a done deal. Look at that. There's the pass. Second place for Peeve. It is now a 13-second gap up to Finch. The difference in lap times is getting much, much bigger. A 150, or no, that is, excuse me, it's the lap car ahead of him. Harrison Finch, 150.6 for Finch. Peeve last time, 49.4. That is the difference that I expected.
Yeah, I was a little surprised Domingo didn't go defensive there, Joe. I know he would have been fighting a losing battle for 9 laps around here, which is a long time, but they have 13 seconds ahead of Carl Germanton back here in 4th place. They could afford to spend a little bit of time, but understandable, of course, in a Formula 1 car when you're running 2nd and 3rd. You don't want to risk losing that, especially in a series that doesn't have that many official races throughout the week. A lot of drivers come here on the weekends. You don't really want to throw away a solid points finish, risking the damage. So Domingo just going to try and salvage a podium finish here.
More blue flags coming out. That is Matt Fretwell, excuse me, who is going to be lapped by Peeve. He has already been lapped by our leaders. Now, Domingo does have to worry a little bit because Germanton's on a run. He's got 7 lap fresher tires than Domingo. And the last time by, Domingo a 151.4, while Germantown a 149.6. So Kyle is a coming.
I think that's what Germanton's thinking about, though, Joe. I think he's got to keep an eye on these mirrors, too, about Kevin Fortman, who is taking about half a second out of Germanton's 4th place lap. Remember, Germanton kicked off the 2nd round of stops, so he does have slightly older tyres now on this 2-stop cycle.
It's every race fan's dream. The 3 cars in a row, and the last one is the fastest one. The one up front is the slowest. It's going to make it a spicy battle here at the end as we ride on board with Fortman.
Speaking of battles, 7th place just traded hands. We talked about Matteo Calistani going around on those super old tyres. He just lost the spot to Evan Lathoris. Pretty simple pass here down the Kimmel Straight.
Well, even Lathoris can make that pass with the DRS. So, as Evan works his way forward, it's the driver who's certainly seen, I think, some of the most action today, but unfortunately for him, not really going to move him up many positions. Still, he should be happy with that 7th place, if I was Evan at least.
It was a clean pass. Beautiful, even.
Jumping back up to the leaders as they cross the line one more time. What was it that time? Peeve, 149.6. Finch, 150.4. 8 laps to go and 11 seconds. Gonna have to cut him down by about 1.1 second a lap. Oh, this is gonna be ever so tight. And once again, it'll depend on that cliff. When is that cliff gonna happen? Down in 4th place, Germanton and Fortman. Fortman was within DRS range, but I don't think he's close enough to run him down. Oh, he's gaining fast. Gonna run out of track, though, as they break for Lacombe.
And just moments behind them, there could be a similar battle going on for ninth down the run on the Kemmel Straight here. Luca Furlick and Ronaldo Augusto haven't got a whole lot of camera time here today, but they're both running in the top 10 in the closing stages. Augusto gets a nice run, looking down the inside in late comms and just manages to pull off a pass.
Nicely done, Ronaldo. Remember, he started in 6th, so for him, this is a climb back forward. Didn't quite work out today for Augusto. Now, did I see a bit of tire smoke, actually? I think that was Calistani. Oh, yeah, he was locking him up down into Rivage. And again, tires now up to 22 laps for this #1 car. I mean, if he pits now, it's going to be worse. He's almost stuck into trying to stretch these things out.
Yeah, see the top left of your screen there, 7 laps left to go. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, we see in real-world Formula 1, pitting with 7 to go works when it starts to rain. There's not many other excuses. iRacing doesn't have rain yet.
Yeah, look forward to that day, at least from a commentator's perspective. Not so much from a driver. That's certainly going to throw the cat among the pigeons as we jump back to 4th once again. This time, a little bit closer for Fortman. So what can the DH driver do to the New Jerseyan?
Each lap at Germantown is able to hold him off as a boom, but I don't think he's going to be able to do it this time. Joe Fortman has a nice run. Now, with this fewer laps left in the race, so I think Germantown needs to try and attempt something. He's not close enough. Trouble, though, for Ronaldo Augusto. We just had him on camera a moment ago. I think he had an off.
Let's see if we can find the replay there. Oh, and that was out of La Source as he was trailing his teammate Calistani, was looking to make a pass. And you would expect Calistani on those old tires to spin, but no, it was Augusto.
It gets worse, Joe, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so that right there, that's 2 incident points. That puts him up to 16. And now he goes on the run down to Eau Rouge. He puts a couple wheels off. He hits 17. He disappeared.
Into the ether, and I'm seeing Germantown gone. Are there a number of cars going over the incident limit here? Canavas is out? Wow, what happened? Germantown must have just happened recently, because I look up and suddenly he's grayed out on my timing and scoring.
Oh, Canavas, we can confirm, was not an incident limit. He lost the connection.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a connection too.
Wow.
Okay, yeah,
okay.
Okay, confirmation, because it also happened to one of our drivers who hit trouble early on, Jan Briesener, who was out of a race, but he also lost the connection. There was just a bit of a server drop. Now, I don't think that's what affected the first driver we saw run into a problem there, because he ran off course, but the rest, yeah.
Well, would the racing gods like to throw the kitchen sink in there as well? We've seen about everything in this race, besides rain at this point. As we watch our leader, Harrison Finch, continue to cycle around on old tires, attempting a one-stop strategy to take the win from Peo Pieve. Pieve last time by a 49.4, Finch a 50.2. It's only 0.8. Pieve has got to pick up the pace. It's a 10-second gap between them with 6 to go, which is going to be 5 here in a second as Finch comes up to the bus stop.
Man, all the fans and Pieve regretting that mistake right now. Imagine if he hadn't lost 7 seconds. This would be a 3-second interval with 6 laps left to go and a 1 second a lap closing rate. We would have a fight at the end. I just think that mistake killed him, Joe.
Might have a pass for 6. Calistani taking advantage of some of those drivers dropping out due to connection issues, which promotes him to 6, but I think he's going to lose it soon, because here comes Luca Furlick.
Yeah, of course, it's the tail end of our top 10. who has benefited a lot from the drivers running towards the tail end of the top 10 that just lost the connection. So Verlick running in 7th now, Stephen Schmidt running in 8th, despite that off-course we saw earlier. Nicholas Rasmussen triggered that major incident at the start, but he is going to rally back to 9th place finish. 10th could get interesting in the closing stages. They're dicing around Pujon right now between Ollie Croker and Pablo Suarez.
On screen, we also saw Furlick take a look at least up into La Source, but couldn't get it done. This is probably where it's going to get done, as DRS is going to be given to Furlick. He's been a little timid as he took a look into the bus stop as well. Is he more brave down into Lacombe? A little bit, tries to get his nose in, but just not good enough on the brakes. Luca Furlick, I would have thought, would have a slam dunk, but we need to give some credit to Matteo. Tires are now 25 laps old, and he's looking fairly smooth out there.
I'll tell you what's not smooth is the battle for 10th. I think there was contact between Ollie Croker and Pablo Suarez in the bus stop. Whatever happened, Suarez lost a lot of time, but I saw Croker coming out of there with a less than ideal angle too.
No, that was all Suarez.
Yeah, that was all Suarez, yep.
Once again, struggling with the energy recovery system and the way the regen just changes the balance of the car. It looks so silly on screen, but our viewers who haven't driven these cars probably don't understand how tough it is to deal with the change in braking balance that they go through. Oh, Furlick's...
Oh, yeah, Calistani stepping out in there.
And he still holds on to it. Wow, that car is just all kinds of shaky. Getting onto the power, that might seal the deal. As trying to go around the outside, could he pull an over-under? Luca Furlick, no, still can't get him. I can't believe that Calistani has held him off for this many laps.
It's good backfire against him still, Joe. I mean, I think Furlick is at the very least going to get alongside him here, but also this is costing both of them time to Stephen Schmidt behind him. Calistani did a nice job of breaking the slipstream, but Furlick's still able to get the run on the outside and pulls it off. Oh, wow, he gets the place. Yeah, Calistani, he lost that battle. He may have lost the war too if Schmidt can run him down.
Yeah, he parked it on the apex, did Furlick. You're going to see here Calistani having to slam on the brakes to keep out of the rear of that McLaren. Positive team sport car, unfortunately, gets demoted down into 7th once again. He is practically making those tires do calisthenics out there, is Calistani.
Yeah, you pretty much... You're talking about balance there, Joe. I mean, that's more balance issues we see there, especially with these old tires. I mean, the thing is, you know, a lot of people think, well, the balance changes twice in the turn. It changes when you're on the brakes and when you're back on the gas. But it also changes a lot in an F1 car when you let off the brakes in the middle of a turn. Before you even get to the turn. Normally, you're done with your braking by the time you hit the apex. It changes a second time there, and that's the part right now where there's a little bug in iRacing that's really upsetting that car. They say, I believe, they're going to be trying to work on that over the next week. Hopefully they'll have it fixed or updated by the time we get to next weekend's race.
I believe there is a build tomorrow, a patch that they're putting out. Hopefully it comes with that. We'll see. Meanwhile, we check up with our leader yet again. Well, it's down to 7.6 seconds, but with only 3 laps left. That means that Peeve would have to gain on him by over 2 seconds a lap, and I just don't think he's going to be able to do it. At this point, Sam, I feel like his best hope is that Finch, being on these old tires, could maybe make a mistake and spin himself.
Yeah, but I mean, when you're talking of someone of Finch's talent level and 8-second lead with 2 laps left to go, I have a feeling he should have it under control.
The other thing for Finch to worry about is he is still blinking all over. And we've seen a couple drivers already lose connection and tumble down the order.
Yeah, it's always the drivers, though, that look like they have a perfect connection that just disappear. The ones that blink, they're there all race long.
The exact thing you don't want in a battle.
Go ahead. Did lose another 2 seconds that lap, Joe. So it just went from 8 to 6 seconds. Still nothing mathematically to worry about, considering there's less than 2 laps left now. But it's going to make you a little bit nervous.
Where is that cliff, though? Is he starting to hit it? Is the lap time's going to just fall off in heaps and chunks now? Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to show the lap times for Finch on screen just because of his blinking so much, messing with our timing and scoring. Keep an eye on Peeve to see what he can do in this race. The gap on my timing and scoring showing now 6.4 between them. As we ride on board with the Central Eastern European driver. He started in third. He got himself into the lead with a fantastic start. But now he's trying to hunt down our leader to regain P1. If you're just joining us here on the Global Sim Racing Channel, you need to go back and watch the rest of this race. It has been full of everything. We talked at the start of the broadcast about how Spa always is a fan favorite, always seems to deliver good stuff. Well, today it did once again.
I just, as Finch comes around to start the final lap here, Joe, I just want to see all these drivers sitting down at a table at the end of a race. Like Luca Ferlich would be going, yeah, I started 12th and finished 6th. Ollie Croker will be going, I started 16th and finished 10th. Finch was just there saying, oh, that's nice, that's nice. Good race, guys.
Well, it's not over yet. The white flag means that he has a little over 4 miles to go. And he's got 5 seconds back to Peeve. Just a few more corners for him to bring home the checkered flag from dead last on the grid after he screwed up his qualifying. Harrison Finch, we've seen him find speed over in the Formula Renault. We knew he's a fast driver. Making the step up to Formula One a much bigger ask. But boy, has he flown today.
Seeing nothing out of the back of those canary yellow mirrors there.
Gaps holding at about 5.3 now between himself and Peeve. That connection just seems like it's getting worse, though.
Well, the worst thing with that regard, Joe, is sometimes if your car blinks as you're going across the start-finish line, that can confuse iRacing. As long as his car appears on screen when it goes across the start-finish line, he should have this win.
It's under 5 seconds. You can almost cruise to the line here, though. Through Blanchimont, Harrison Finch on 22-lap old tires. Into the bus stop. All he has to do is gun it and not spin the car. And as he comes to the line, Harrison Finch goes from last to first here at Spa. Peeve was so close, but with 4 seconds between them and a 7-second loss in his spin, he has to be kicking himself. Still a second place today. And how about Domingo as well, making that one-stop strategy work for a podium?
Yeah, those 2 cars behind him are for position there. One more lap and Domingo would have not finished third. Kevin Fortman gets 4th place and Ethan Lathoras, boy, Evan Lathoras, he had an up and down race. He comes home in 5th place. Good, 6th place, a good race here for Luca Ferlich.
Yeah, he's left Calistani behind now. Going from 12th to 6th. Calistani, oh boy, that penalty hurt. It was pretty much damage limitation today. Still a 7th place, respectable for Matteo.
Stephen Schmidt will get 8th. Nicholas Rasmussen will get 9th. Ollie Croker, he was a driver who went for a spin today. Pretty dramatic one at that. He's still going to bring it home with a lead lap finisher in 10th position.
In fact, the last car on the lead lap. So with that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. But don't go away, because on screen you'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Spa-Francorchamps. We just watched round 2 in the iRacing Grand Prix Series. If you missed this one, you missed a doozy. Go back and watch this after you hear, well, actually go back and watch before you hear the finishing order so it can be a surprise. Because up at the top, started in 18th out of 18 cars. He used the strategy to his advantage, and Harrison Finch one-stopped this race to win by 5.6 seconds at the end. Peo Stoyanov Piv, he had a spin that basically cost him the win, but he still got second place, having started third. Manu Domingo, how about him one-stopping as well? He managed them actually on one lap older tires than Finch did to get himself a podium. Kevin Fortman takes fourth. Evan Lathoris, of course, got fifth back there, going way up and down the order. Luca Furlick took himself a sixth place, going from 12th. A nice job from him. Matteo Calistani has to be kicking himself. He just put his tires over the line on the pit exit, got himself a penalty that sent him back to 7th in the end. Stefan Schmidt, he gets 8th today, and then P9 goes to Nicholas Rasmussen. Unfortunately, his spinning the tires at the start put him on the back foot. Ollie Kwaka, he had not too bad of a race, but had a few moments there before the end. And the end, he does get a top 10, Sam.
Yeah, and he did have another 360 right at the end there, coming out of Blanchimont on his way down to the line. Pablo Suarez, however, was a lap down in 11th, so even if Croak had been on the last lap, he would have still got 10th. Bruno Canavas, he finished in 12th after that connection issue. He was actually one of the drivers who was able to return to the server and salvage some positions, because behind him was Matt Fretwell and Djalmas Garot, who was the last driver 1 lap down. Unfortunately, then you hit drivers who ran into significant issues during the race. Ronaldo Augusto 2 laps down there in 15th. Carl Germanton was having a very impressive race until he lost the connection, and then 2 drivers who ran into trouble early on, rounding out our 18 car field. That's Jan Brazina and Emil Stanchio.
Reminder, if any of our drivers are watching the post-race interviews, we do have the Discord link in the YouTube chat. Definitely come over and talk to us. We do have one that we want to get the impressions from, and that is Peo Peeve, who has rocked up into our interview room. So let's get him mic'd up. And Peo, are you kicking yourself after that spin in the bus stop?
They are waxed. But it's my mistake.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said it's my mistake. I waxed.
Now, obviously, that has been a bit of a point of contention the drivers have been talking about before this race. Was it the recovery system, the regen, that caused you to spin, or was that strictly driver error?
The car is a little bit, especially, I still get surprised by it when stopping straight. By the end, the car just rears the spokes by themselves. I'm not sure is it the or we have to adapt, take off a little bit of brakes at the end. Time
you might have to adjust the sensitivity on your auto detector.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now better?
There we go. Now we got you. You were cutting in and out.
So I'm gonna get it. The car is more hard brakes.
Oh,
I'm not sure exactly it's the recovery, but I'm still adapting. I had know that actually wrong driver find out go, so my pace picked up pretty much by almost, not that much, almost. So there's a lot of
well, and apologies, it sounds like you're still cutting out, so we'll get that sorted out later with Peo Peeve, but I think we got the gist of the disappointment there. We do have our winner who has showed up. We've talked to him a number of other times, but first time we've talked to him about a win in the McLaren MP4-30. Harrison, did you even think that you could go from last to first in a race like this?
I knew it was a long race, so I knew anything was possible, but at the start I didn't think it was really possible, because I knew my teammates were really fast and it would be hard to catch them, especially towards the end. But then after I gained quite a lot of positions off the start, I knew it probably would have been possible, so yeah, carried on pushing.
Now, we understand that that it worked, but with a little bit of luck on that pit strategy. Did you switch to that one-stop strategy as soon as you gridded up, or was that something that you just kind of went to on the fly?
I just went with it because the tyres, I was originally going to stop on around lap 14, which is when everyone else pretty much stops, but I felt the tyres were still in good condition. But after about 4 laps, they just fell off the cliff and I was losing like 1.5 seconds a lap, so probably would have been better for me to pit, but I still got the job done, so it didn't really matter.
Now, at what point did you feel like this win was really possible? Because It seemed like you were being run down by Peeve, but obviously you probably weren't aware that he had the spin until after the race.
Yeah, I knew it would have been hard when I saw the gap just before he spun, but then I seen him lose like 8 or 9 seconds, so I thought he pitted at first, but then I realised he was still on track, so I knew he had some sort of issue that, yeah, that sort of helped me push on to try and keep first place. I knew it would be harder for him to catch.
All right. Well, fantastic job today. That really impressed us and gave us a thriller to watch. Congratulations on the win.
Thanks for broadcasting. Did a good job.
All right. That was Harrison Finch, winner today. And unfortunately, looks like that's going to be all that we can talk to for today. Sorry, Sam, I was going to hand over to you for another interview, but looks like we ran out of time. So with that, let's thank a few people before we go. Of course, a big thanks to the IGPS community for bringing us on, and to Jan Brzezina for approaching us and asking GSRC to broadcast this race. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on the screen. And additional thanks to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Sam, Amjed, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, on Facebook at /Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Next race, we're going to the Nürburgring, but don't worry, we're going to the GP version. That'll be Sunday, April 1st at 10 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. However, until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.